Hey, this is Kahja Elliott, Bronx born and raised, ATL made, Bay Area becoming, and this is the As Told By podcast. I'm so excited for today's episode. I've been looking forward to this one because the listenership of the As Told By podcast is going to get, a window into what I've had a window into on Wednesday nights for the last 2 years. So in previous seasons, I've let people introduce themselves, but people would get on a humble pie, and some of y'all need to be a little less humble because y'all have things to speak of. So I'm going to introduce the two people that I'm interviewing today, both Oakland natives, both entrepreneurs, Nana Kofi Nti of 510 Media and Courtsmith of Courtsmith. So thank y'all both for coming to the As Told By podcast.
Yo, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. I know y'all are hecka busy. So I appreciate taking time out to do this with me today. So let me take a step back. Primarily, my listenership is in the Bay, it's in New York, and it's in Atlanta, all cities that I've lived in.
I love those cities.
So the Oakland people, the Bay people, most of y'all probably know them.
Yeah.
But for the people who maybe don't, or for the people who aren't in the Bay, and I'll start with you, Court, please introduce yourself in a bit more detail and tell people what Courtsmith is.
Courtsmith, first of all, is my name, Courtney Smith, and I have an athletic brand called Courtsmith. It originally was Courtsmith basketball, but over the years we've evolved and expanded into other sports. But we have an athletic brand that we service a lot of the youth teams around here, and anybody who is passionate about sports. Initially basketball, that's where our lane is. I've been a designer for about 2 decades now, an apparel designer. So that's been my space, and what I love to do, and what I love how I've been able to affect the culture of basketball and the culture of our kids.
Okay. Thank you. And Nana?
Okay. I was going to do something funny, but I'm going to keep it simple this time. So my name is Nana Kofi Nti, and I'm one of the co-owners and founders of 510 Media, which is a for-profit. It's a behavior science branding firm, and we design campaigns, but in addition to design campaigns, we also deal with internal and external strategies. So we work on nudging human behavior. We look at systems and look at redesigning systems. We work on ideation, combination, and then also a founder of 510 Media Hope Foundation, which is a Black entrepreneur program that's targeting African Americans from a space of behavior science. We're looking at the impact of trauma, the cultural impact of trauma, racism, slavery, the crack era, Jim Crow era, and how it impacts us in our decision making, our group structures, and how we perform in the market.
Okay. That's a lot of impact.
Yeah, it's a lot, but that's how I think.
Yeah. I want both of you to know that, just in the spirit of preparation, I looked to see if I could find bios for both of you online, and I couldn't. I found bios for your companies, but nothing specifically on you. So do you make it your business to keep a low profile?
Yeah. Not intentionally. It's just, you raise different,
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, been in business now 16 years, and I think, when you first start in business in the Black community, it's kind of a status thing. So your head is above water, and you're kind of looking around, looking for attention, and you realize you're not making any money. And so then you have to put your head down and figure this out and realize that you have to almost create a new consciousness. You can't hold on to the way you used to think. You have to literally adapt a new consciousness. And in adaptation, you realize my head is down and I'm not working on my own personal branding. But you're also, at the front of your ship making these strategical calls daily. And it's not that you don't prioritize it, but also I think you also become a humble servant. You know, you really realize that you're not in business to flex your value. You're in business to serve. And it's a big difference.
Yeah. So, you know, to that point, what does it mean to each of you to be operating successful entrepreneurs in Oakland, where you both are born and raised?
You want to start it? Because it's everything to me, but go ahead.
For me, it's part of the purpose. I learned so much here. I'm a second-generation entrepreneur, technically. I grew up in my father's barbecue restaurant on 98th in East 14th.
That's right.
And then he moved it to High Street and then moved it next to Dixon's when I was real young. So I grew up at the cash register in East Oakland. And that's where he put me, at the cash register. So I got to be I got to get a front row seat to what entrepreneurship was like in the 80s here. And I'm very, very proud to be a second generation because I lost Pops to the crack era, but I feel like part of his legacy is me entrepreneuring too. Mm-hmm. And so Oakland is, to me, such a beautiful city. It's the culture, the richness, the swag, the personality, the grittiness, like a lot of the things that people compliment, you know, or I've received compliments for in life. It really is a lot of us are like that because that's the culture of the city. Mm-hmm. So I'm proud, and at the same time, you know, it's the hue of what we do. So it's apparent that my company is a reflection of Oakland grittiness and creativity and things of that nature. And we also are lightweight known for having a low profile because we kind of, you know, we just letting our work do the talking for us. And so it's infused in everything that we do, at least, you know, on my side. But with still with excellence as a focus, but you get it, you get it, and you understand it, especially if you're from here.
Yeah, you know, can't top that. Can't top that. I mean, yeah, you know, I agree with him. I share the love for Oakland. It's an honor, especially when people from the city support your business. And it's a nod. It's an honor when you're able to give back to the same community that birthed you. You know, honestly, you know, by the way, that story that Court told about being at the cash register, that's an amazing story, by the way, if you understand business. But, you know, coming out of high school, I went to Castlemont. And I really thought I either was going to be a dope dealer or a pimp. I was really negotiating those two options. And this was at the beginning of the crack era. My father was a high-level drug dealer, high level. Like, sport teams would come by our house and purchase cocaine. And I remember the Celtics come by the house. Could you imagine what they looked like when you were a kid? I felt like the Jolly Green Giants were really in the house. And I grew up, you know, learning the difference between cocaine and heroin and how to access all the guns in the house. And, you know, it's just, I grew up in that world. And I had somebody come up to me one day and said, this is one of the top 3 philosophers in the world. He's from Chile. And he said, hey, you kind of remind me of me. And I knew who he was. And I was so honored about that it started me on this journey of saying I could be somebody. Because before then, I didn't think I could be anything besides a pimp and a drug dealer. Because I thought going to corporate America was selling my culture out or selling my family out or selling my race out. And then one day I woke up and found out I was black. I literally read a book by Malcolm X Speaks. And came home and I was like, yo, I'm changing my whole path. And so when I started Fight Team Media, I was a guy at the Berkeley Flea Market. Anybody know about Berkeley Flea Market? It was a place where all the conscious folks put on their dashikis and went down on the weekend. This is when they used to sell CDs and cassette tapes.
Still over there.
Oh, they still over there? Okay, yeah, I ain't been over there in a long time. And so I used to go down there and just have, sit around in ciphers, and we would have these debates and discussion where black folks need to go next. And I would walk around with a backpack, because we didn't have digital technology. I would have a backpack full of books. I'm talking about, that's probably why I'm hella buff, because I had hella books, right? But I was always reading because I wanted to learn more and more and more about Africa, our culture. And then at some point I realized, I was just part of the complaining party, but I wasn't doing anything. Right? So I was always shaming somebody because they weren't doing this, or this is what black people should be doing, or why are you dating her? She ain't black. And I was doing all those type of things. And I realized, you know what? Why are you going to tell people what to do when you ain't did nothing? So about 17, 18 years ago, I was like, I have to run my own business because I have to learn how to build. And once I learn how to build, it'll put me in a real conversation. I had no idea how deep this was going to put me in a conversation. Mm-hmm. And I can honestly say that journey has changed me more than a little bit.
More than a lot of it.
Yeah.
You've covered a lot of ground since thinking of
I have no idea.
And drug dealing.
Have no idea. No idea. I was really negotiating those two.
To that point, success as an entrepreneur is not a linear path. Court, you tell a story about having success and making significant money when you first started out, and then being humbled in the experience of losing it and having to start over. Tell that story for the people who haven't heard it.
I mean, humility to me is one of the key ingredients to being a successful entrepreneur. And if you don't got it, by golly, you're going to get it. Because God or situations or circumstances, if you are on the journey, is going to force you to be it. So early on in my entrepreneurial ventures, I had big chips on my shoulder, had a lot to prove. I was a cocky motherfucker. Oh, can I cuss?
You can.
I was a cocky motherfucker with the ER on the end of it.
Sure, you're right.
I was a know-it-all kid. I knew I had a lot to prove, and big ego, and I knew everything. And I was one of those independent-minded folks who did everything themselves. They couldn't get it done. I'm gonna do it myself. And I was, I say, fortunate enough to be able to figure things out on my own, which gave me even more credence to continue to have that kind of behavior. So my first entrepreneurial venture, I had some success early. So 2003, I quit my job, and it was a career. I was working in Silicon Valley, tech company. To the average person, like, I had it made, right? So why would I even think about doing some entrepreneurial shit? But
that means he left his stock options.
I left the stock options, group benefits, 401k, pension, all that shit. I was working at Intel Corporation, and they was dope enough as a company to see talent and not necessarily color. So they was moving people up and around as they, as you perform. So I was doing well there, lots of promotions and shit. So. But I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So, period. And once it hit me hard. So my exit strategy came. My ego was the one that got me out. I was up for the next promotion, to be the manager of a department, and the VP of our department decided to let her partner in to take that spot instead of my supervisor, who was trying to groom me for it. And one day I walk in and I get my boss is the job that I was supposed to have. So me and her is having a one-on-one meeting, and I look at her and say, I'm putting in my 2 weeks.
Not doing it.
I'm out. So I got 2 weeks to figure out what the fuck I was going to do. And mind you, I have a family. I got a house, a mortgage, 2 kids, a wife. So ego was the first driver, and the thing is, I didn't fail. So it was hard to tell me anything because I quit. I landed on my feet, and I built this company. Everybody thinking I'm crazy, and I landed on my feet. 3 years later, the company's up. 2 years after that, my stuff is in Macy's, so you can't tell me shit.
Nothing.
And I'm late 20s, early 30, early. Yeah, I'm maybe 29. So, at that point, it was hard to even be around me, it was because I knew everything. My opinions was the only opinion. Ego crazy, dominating every situation, every conversation. So the signs came, but my brain was not focusing on the signs. And eventually, after a few bad moves, contrary to certain people around me that was telling me that those were bad moves, shit crashed. I crashed hard. And not only did I crash the business, I crashed the marriage, I crashed the house, I crashed my finances, I crashed everything. So, like, I woke up on my ass. And so now I got, like, a baby mama. I was married for 15 years. Now I got a baby mama situation. I got kids, and I'm flat broke. Like, no money, no businesses, no nothing. So, it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it really woke me up to the fact that I don't know that much. I ain't all that. Like, I'm not all that. It's not. I have so much to learn as a human being if I want to be successful. So much to learn. So once I embrace the fact that I am just a small little cog in this gigantic wheel of life, and if I want to get better, I got to be humble and say, hey, I don't know that. Or just shut the fuck up. Then that's when life started to change for me. But I had it bad. Even in those bad times, my ego still needed time to really dissolve more because, like I said the story in class, there was times where my friends saw me hit rock bottom because I hit rock bottom, and they were trying to help me, and I would still say stupid shit like, because I didn't even have a car. And they like, Court, what's up? Like, why don't you take my car? Use my car. I got you. Don't trip. And I say, well, what kind of car is it?
Wow.
Because I'd rather walk than drive a bucket. Like, that was my mentality back then. And I walked. And it was over time, I had to unravel all of that before I started something new.
Yeah. I love that story. What kind car it is. I mean, there's all, you can look at that both ways. When the shit is crashing, do you still have some pride in yourself, or is your ego completely running the show? Maybe a little bit of both.
Is your ego? The thing is, it's like a lot of times us humans, we have they're coming like somebody's coming for me mentality. So don't worry, my partners is coming. They coming to get me. I know I'm having a bad, but wait till my partners come. Wait till they come. They come for me. So I think I was still stuck in that. Like, oh man, I'm a boss. I'm a motherfucking boss. I know this is temporary because I'm a boss. I ain't never been down like this. So it's going. I'm not trying to start at stage 2 or and go 3, 4, 5. I want to go straight from rock bottom back up to bins. I don't want no gaps. So that the brain is stuck on that. And my brain was stuck on that for years, probably another 2 years until they're like, no, motherfucker, Toyota, 92 Toyota.
Not the 92.
Yeah.
With the hatchback. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
Ooh, come on back down.
No, that's real.
Nana, you identify with any of that?
Yeah, I think that's one of my greatest fears for a lot of young African American, and there might be other races that fall victim to this, but what I'm familiar with is young African Americans who are at the very core base of it, we don't feel like we're good enough. So when something starts to work out, it's easy for us to over leverage our successes and start to assume because we're great or amazing or something's wonderful about us, which then takes us out the game. We think we're in the game because the decisions we're making are working. But like I said in my class, the last class of the year, basketball is not about only the best will win, but it's 48 minutes of decision making. And in that 48 minutes of decision, there's hundreds of decisions being made in 48 minutes. But many people only witness the physical, athletic capabilities of the sports player. Yet you don't see the decisions. It's so abstract, right? And so a lot of times, I think in business, sometimes we tell these stories. We're still telling stories as if we're telling about people's athleticism in business. Look what he did. He did this and he did this and he flexed this muscle, right? But what we're missing is the hundreds of decisions that are being made and the artistry and sometimes the luck and sometimes the team and the process that surrounds individuals. And I think what Court was highlighting, and I think that was really dope about his story, was he made himself the hero, the center of his story. And I think what he just told you is that he realized that that's just not how it works. And then he starts, so now as he's getting back to his great heights, he realizes he sees the value of the systems and the process, the decision making, the thinking, and also knowing what you don't know and knowing how to surround yourself with people who can reinforce your successes, right? And I think that's what I heard when I heard that story. And so I think a lot of times when people listen to success podcasts, they listen for hero stories. More and more, what did Steve Jobs say? And, what did this person say? And I tell people, I don't give a shit. It's how did they make decisions? What was the systems around them? Did you understand the systems they were dealing with? Like, what was their margins? What impacted their margins? How did they manage their margins as they continue to scale and expand? How did they respond to that, right? If we're not having those kind of conversations, it's like getting you excited to get in the middle of a football field to find yourself in a hospital that night because you realize you couldn't play. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's really powerful. That story he's telling, it has so many layers of wisdom in it. But I don't want folks that's listening to this podcast to shrink his story down to, he was a great hero and he failed. And then he came back and he learned a couple of things and now he's great again. It's like, it's greater than that. Mm-hmm. And I think he said that. But it's easy to miss that because when we listen, often we're projecting. We only hear what we want to hear. So I think that story he just told was super, super powerful. And also I know the man, so I see him humble and I see him learning at an enormously fast rate. You swear this man is about to graduate from Harvard for a PhD because, like, if you just turn your back on him, he's already evolved. I'm talking about if you just do a 360 and turn around, he's already somebody else because he's always practicing and working on his personal growth.
Okay. That's what I heard, Court. That's what the streets saying.
That's what the streets saying.
That's what the streets saying.
They're saying that.
Nana, you talk a lot in class, and we're going to get to what class is in a minute.
No, I don't say nothing in class.
Yeah, you do. You talk a lot in class about the danger of becoming the technician in your business. So can you explain what that means, and can you share your own personal approach to creating systems that have allowed you to step back from being in that role within your own business without compromising delivery?
So I'm gonna apologize to your listeners because I'm not gonna walk a path of simplicity.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and just talk the way I would talk to Court. Because in class, often I boil things down, and I just really spend the whole week just simplifying. When I call Court, I throw up on the phone. There is no filters for this man, right? Him and Mashama, they will hear everything that comes out of my from my mind. And so, technician, I don't want to define it the way that I think you would define it for, like, say, general audiences. I want to give it some cultural context. If you're raised in a culture where you were pretty much turned into the working class, so you were a slave class, working class, that's a nicer way of saying slave class, right? So that went from slavery to Jim Crowism, and Jim Crowism ended in the 70s. So then you go into, from the Jim Crow era, You start to watch television. You start to think things are different, but you're still the working class. And when you decide you want to build, you only know how to do the work. You don't know how to build. It's two different ways of thinking. And so for a lot of black folks, and this happens to other races too, because it has different ways, they end up at the same destination from different paths. And where the technician thing comes into place is that you think you're building your business because you're making or you have hands-on the product. Yet, that's not running the business. There's no way in the world you can successfully grow a business or become successful by constantly keeping your hands on the products, because here's some limitations. Time. You only have so much time. You're one person. At some point, you have to build systems and processes to compete at higher levels, to be able to build residual income, to grow your businesses. And so a lot of times for us, and let me tell you what's hard about this. Now, I say that very generically, so it sounds really easy to follow along. But let me tell you the challenge that entrepreneurs have when they transition from the technician to the entrepreneur. See, when you're a technician, you build pride, you build ego, you build status, you build all these things about what you on the back of what you do. So, for example, when I first started Fighting Media, I was a commercial photographer in Oakland. So I was one of the best photographers in Oakland. So I walked around with pride, right? I started teaching all the other photographers what I knew, because I didn't want to be the best and just brag about it, because to me that's not my blackness doesn't allow me to do that. So I was like, yo, I picked up these talents I'm gonna share with the rest of the people in the community. When it came time for me to put the camera down and run my company, that was very, very difficult, because my personality was tied to the camera, my status was tied to camera. My reputation, my branding, my ego was tied to the camera. And so I was tied. So that anchored me into being the technician, not realizing that there's a greater dream on the other side. I mean, I had to get to the point where I stepped away from doing the day-to-day activities and figure, where's this ship going? Imagine a ship sailing down the river and everybody's working hard at their stations, making sure that the ship is moving along. But there's nobody on top of the ship trying to figure out where we're going. And that's the position I had to take. And so learning how to live in a world of abstractions and systemic thinking and models and these ideas that just seem so abstract that you can't put your hands on them. Like the things I have to deal with daily, I literally can't put my hands on. I can't say, oh yeah, if you do A, B, and C, E, F, G will happen, right? Literally in business, I'm always doing things that it's just very abstract. Mm-hmm. But those are the most important things you can do in business. Because at some point, everybody can do the work. But very few, very, 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 very few people understand this abstract game. It's the decision making. It's the being able to see the invisible systems that impact your business that has no visibility to the person who's a technician. Has zero visibility. In order for you to even see those systems, you have to come off the front line and pay attention. And once you see these new systems, you realize, oh, this is a whole different way of thinking, a whole different language, a whole different consciousness. And it's just not, you don't see that in all these popular entrepreneur things, all these little workshops and all these little programs that I would want to say trash, but I can't say trash because it's your podcast.
You can say trash programs?
Trash.
Was that it?
Trash.
Mm-hmm. Court, have you experienced that in your business, staying out of the technician spot? Especially in your business, because you are, I would assume the designs are primarily coming from you. So it would be easy to fall into that space, I would think.
Well, two things. For me, one, I have a high percentage of technician in my blood. Mm-hmm. Just that's how I'm built. So I have to do a lot of things counterintuitive. I had to work hard to learn because I make a living. I made a living off my hands. But I have a team of designers that I've hired to pretty much edge me out of the design department. So I only design maybe 10, 15% of the stuff now. And that's the way it's been since 2018-ish, about 18. So it's been difficult, but I've for the sake of growth, I've had to find ways to understand what my value is outside of designing and learn new skill sets and become good at other things. And the growth and scale of my business have been more important to me. So I've played little games with myself to make it art. Like scaling is art now, you know. And if I say that to myself 3 times, my brain thinks now it's an art project, you know. So, but I love doing shit with my hands. I love drawing. I've been doing it since I was 5, drawing pictures, and my evolution of me as a human have been around doing some shit. So then you get good enough at something in your business to where at some point they say, yeah, you got to stop doing that. It's like, what? Well, this is how I got here. Yeah, but you can't do it no more if you want to grow. So again, your ego will say, yeah, but I'm the rawest at what I do. I got good doing this. This is why people fuck with me. And you say, well, if you want to ride on that, then you're going to die on that. So you got to find a way to find people who you can train that's close to you or similar, or even if it's 75-80% of who you are. So now it's 2 of you, and you can start scaling and growing and figuring out how to build your business and your company versus drawing pictures. And that's really, you know, what I had to learn. So it's for real a transition. Like the thing is, if any of you as entrepreneurs get to that phase, that's a good problem to have. That's the first thing. Just know that that's a good problem to have, because you just bumped up against your limitations. It's only 24 hours in a day. And you can't design, build, market, Instagram, fucking post, take pictures, talk to potential clients, customers, or investors at the same time. So pick one. And if it's drawing, then I'll see you in the same fucking spot next year with the same revenue. So what you want to do?
You know what's so funny too? There's a couple of things there. You know, at certain levels of business, a lot of times the CEO doesn't even care about the product or service. They're in the game of business. They're doing business. Once you understand like real business, sometimes passion works against you, because it causes you to tilt and make a lot of emotional decisions that undermine your business, right? Other thing I want to highlight was when Court said, I've always built things with my hands, because it's been my moment of certainty in my life. It's my anchor of certainty in my life. That speaks to culture. Okay, if you say I like pizza, that's only because you was raised in a culture of pizza. If you was raised in a culture where there's no pizza, you would have no desire for pizza, right? We are raised in a culture of descendants of slaves. So we take pride in hard work, touching things with our hand, building things. We don't realize how much it's not just us, and it's not the same. All human beings enjoy doing things on our hand or something. I mean, you can't get rid of that feeling, right? That's all of us. That's part of being a human being, is touching things. I'm saying the degree that we relate to it is culturally supported so strong. So, like for example, if Court left his office and went to a party and said, "Man, I worked 12-hour day and I built like 30 designs," he'll be praised, right? But watch this. He go to the same event and say, "Yeah, I work 4 hours a day and I made so many decisions." People are like, "Yeah, so anyway, what do you want to drink?" Like there's no value in our culture for the decision making, right? So going back to the basketball, we value Michael Jordan's dunk. We may value the uniforms or Steph Curry's. Like, for example, even when you see LeBron James, you don't realize how smart LeBron James is. You see him passing the ball. You see him going down the middle, dunk. You see him shooting a three-point that he's not that good at. He's okay. And anyway, I love LeBron. But you actually don't pay attention to the intelligence of LeBron. Most people just misses, like, unless you like, Court would know, because Court is in the basketball world. But most people, fans, are going to watch LeBron for just the drama, not his intelligence. And what I'm saying is that we are missing the value of the required intelligence to stay in this game. Like can you become an entrepreneur and last for a little while with low levels of intelligence? Of course you can. Shit, yeah, I've seen it happen. But I'm talking about survival. I'm talking about walking away better off than you were before you started. I'm talking about growing your personal brand as you navigate this process. I'm talking about being able to handle trend changes and aging and competition, right? Like that's a lot of decisions you got to make. Like nothing stays the same. Everything's random. Everything's changing. And yet you got these people trying to sell us these like puzzle modules as if business is just about putting together a whole bunch of little pieces of puzzles and all of a sudden you have this business because you put together the puzzle. And it's like, nah, imagine putting together a puzzle and it's always changing. Always changing. It never stays the same. And once you realize that, even some of the ideas we say in culture to make ourselves feel secure, which is like, this is how I always do it, or this is who I am, or, I came up on this block, I never change. We don't have that privilege as entrepreneurs. We got to always make those adjustments, even if it means changing the name of our business or even changing the business overall. Courtsmith could turn around and be a car manufacturer 20 years from now. It's possible because that's the nature of business.
Such an interesting point. I'm, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about a couple of businesses that have done complete about faces, or done a complete about face. I don't know why Daewoo was the first thing that came to my mind that did electronics, and then the next thing they were making was cars.
Yeah, it's
Samsung, all of them.
Yeah, all of them.
Honda.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, especially Honda. But like, I think, the future is random and unpredictable. And small things and big things create huge change. So I mean, small things and huge things are creating big changes at all time. So having this logical forward path is really a hallucination of an individual. At the point, you have to be able to recognize patterns and capitalize on those patterns. You have to be able to it's really the art of navigation more than it is the art of following the steps or the directions. And I think where a lot of people set people up for failure is that people who go to school follow directions to receive a degree. Then people who have a corporate job follow directions to receive a promotion. Entrepreneurs have to design the directions. There's no directions for us. We have to design them. Because there's so many different things that are impacting and saying, hey, these things have to change. So we can't play the game of follow the directions. And that's why a lot of times when you have people who are not entrepreneurs, training entrepreneurs, they're talking in this language of certainty and directions and patterns that often I'm like, who are they talking to? Because that doesn't exist out here like that. Right? Like every day, I'm sure Court can tell you, every day plans are disrupted. It's part of the game. You don't get mad. You don't get upset. You don't get frustrated. You don't kick the dog. You don't do anything crazy. You just literally say, okay, it's changed. Time to pivot. Yeah. It's changed. Another decision. It's changed. Just like when you're playing sports, right? It's like you go into a game and you have a playbook and you read the plays you're going to run and then you just run them in sequence and the game is over. You go, okay, let's see if it won. You keep adjusting as a competition adjusts, and as you guys continue to adjust, the person who's able to make the best amount of decisions within that 48 minutes win the game. That's it.
Pretty simple. So this is what I've had access to on Wednesday nights through this class that I keep mentioning. So the class is called, when I first found it was called A Year of Hope, now Hope Academy. I found the class completely by accident. I didn't know any of the people involved.
Oh, that's cool.
I happened to be following, this was during the pandemic, so everybody was in the house, spending a lot of time on Instagram, and I was following Kevin Allen because I had just recently become aware of his music through Grand National.
Oh, wow.
And through his connection to 510 Media, the class was being broadcast on Instagram Live because people couldn't come into the studio to watch it live. And I just happened to watch. That was my first exposure. And I'm like, oh, who are these people? Oh, what is this? What are they talking about? And it was interesting enough where it's like, okay, well, they're going to do it weekly. And so the next week I came back, and the next week. And then when class opened up to come in person, I came down to the studio, and, fast forward, here we are 2 years later. So for the people who don't know, Describe what the class is and what your distinct roles in the class are.
Hope is dedicated to giving game to Black entrepreneurs, and enough game. And if you say if you call it a bag full of game, and you open the bag up and you start pulling the game out, it's not prescriptions. It's ways of thinking and ways of observing and decision making that make you a better entrepreneur and a better human. Mm-hmm. So that's really, to me, what it is not prescriptions. It's more, this is like you talked about earlier, this is a new entrepreneurial consciousness. However, like, I believe us as Black folks, we need a lot of work. And we need a lot of rewiring. Just because of what we've gone through as a people, on all the trauma and the shit. And what I love about hope and what's taught in hope is it commands you to take complete responsibility of where you are.
Oh.
So that way you no longer blame society or anybody for where you want to go. You take responsibility, and you start, and we give you the tools, the mental tools, to start taking action. And so, as I was growing my company, and once I start hitting certain revenue amounts, the first thing that came to me was like, I got to figure out a way to start giving back to my people. And I start kind of putting together in my mind, like, I want to teach a entrepreneurial class for Black folks, and doing, and then I just stumbled upon a Hope commercial on Facebook.
Oh wow!
And this is years ago, maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah, about 4 years ago.
I'm like, what the fuck? It's a weird coincidence that somebody already is doing it. Beat me to it in Oakland. And so I start seeing people that I recognized in the class, in the commercials. I'm like, there's no way that I should be starting some shit. I'd rather go to this brother and say, what you need? Mm-hmm. So I called him, reached out to him. We got on the phone, like, what you need? Like a security guard, what you need? Like,
not
what?
The security.
No, he wasn't humble. He wasn't humble.
What we need to do, like what you need. So we after we really had a good strong conversation. It was instant, because the philosophies and the intention of the class and a lot of the core principles were the same. Mm-hmm. So the details and how we got there and how we got to those answers, some of those are different, and that's beautiful. That's being human. That's being different. But most of the core principles, it was like they're there. They don't even need to be adjusted. Oh, you fuck with that too? I do too. All right, that one. So if it's 9 out of 10, like it's a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's where he had already been teaching for a few years already, and so I just connected my machine to his machine, because I feel like we're more powerful together than apart.
Real quick too, I think when he says, what you need, it's easy to assume that he came to me in a subservient position. But if you understand power, that was a powerful position. Mm-hmm. That's how you gain power, right? Like, you can't always want to be alpha at all times. That's a weakness. Alpha also knows how to serve. Alpha knows how to follow. Alpha knows how to ask for help. And what's so powerful about that is that I can feel his alpha female alpha, that's to me, I have too many females in my family. alpha male, I felt his alpha male in him when he asked that question, to the point that it made me curious to say, who's this brother? Because it's like if you're in professional martial arts and you're doing a certain art and he's like doing a different kind of art. And he's like, I want to learn your art too. So I'm going to humble myself as a student to learn your art. But he's not coming to you to say, I want to follow you blindly, whatever you say, I'm just going to go that direction, right? And that means it's also, let me share something that's kind of hidden there. That it also puts a responsibility on me, which says, I have a responsibility to show up a certain kind of way to this man to earn his respect for his collaboration. Mm-hmm. If I don't earn his respect for his collaboration, I can't blame him if he says at some point, I can't really mess with you anymore, bro. Right? So it's just, I think that's a radical responsibility there, is that his humility called me to step up and be respectful to his high level of manhood. And then even when we're negotiating, there's always respect in every form of communication between us, because I respect him for his commitment, his investment, his growth, his level of responsibility. And that's what really makes up his dope manhood. So to continue to answer the question, I hope I don't want to leave that behind. Originally, when I was a founder of Hope, I remember sitting at my desk with Mashama, and we're doing all this strategy work in corporate America, a lot of strategy work. And we're working on systems, and we're working on external systems. We're working on nudging human behavior. We're working on campaigns. We're working from health campaigns to for-profit campaigns. And I remember sitting next to my business partner going, hey, bro, black folks don't know this shit. The stuff that we're doing, black folks don't know this. I sit in some of the most intellectual circles, most educated people, they don't know this stuff. I said, man, I think I want to teach a class. He said, well, when you want to start? I said, can we do it in 2 weeks? He's like, come on, bro. You got to be kidding me, right? 2 weeks later, I'm standing in front of people, and I'm just sharing stories. I don't really know what I'm doing. I spent the last 7 years learning how to teach. That was my challenge, because I knew I wasn't a teacher. I accepted I wasn't a teacher, but I knew I had information that was so valuable, and I wanted to share it like right away with my people. So I you're going to have to learn something. Second, I realized that what we were suffering from was not money. Black folks had access to money. We just didn't know how to, we didn't know how to put it together, but we have access to money. We weren't suffering from just tactics, like just do this, or you just need some new nuggets and your life would be different. We had mental health problems that we normalized from slavery, that we just call it culture. We call it culture today. We don't realize, no, that's not healthy culture. But we call it culture today because it's really responding to a trauma that was put upon us from a history that we went through. And so now when we're in the midst of high levels of stress and decision-making and possible loss aversion and all these different things, we have a tendency to default to certain behavior that undermines our success. Mm-hmm. Other thing that I think that's important about hope, and I think that's one of the most important things this year, and I call it emergence, but it's culture. And let me say this about culture. If tomorrow somebody blew up, if they put us on an island, there was no access to any other human beings, and you took Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger,
I'll throw Elon in there.
Elon Musk, LeBron James, Beyonce, Jay-Z, and let me add
all the single ladies.
Let me throw a little crazy. Let me put some Rihanna in there. I'm gonna mix it a little bit of Kanye to kind of give it some flavor, keep us wild and out. Obama, we're gonna die. You say, wait, what? We're gonna die. If we're on an island and there's no resources, it's just land. Now, the land can have resources. Mm-hmm. But you put all those people on an island, meaning that the intelligence that they have won't serve us at that level of foundation. I need somebody who understands how to till the land, how to go out and figure out how to fish, how to take these precious metals and produce solids that can actually house us, how to figure out how to deal with any illnesses that may arise. There's the things that just we take for granted. So many levels of intelligence that are built into culture that's so invisible from us. Like, for example, if somebody blew up a pencil company tomorrow, do you realize how hard it would be to create a pencil again? How much knowledge we just assume because we can grab a pencil, but to go out there and recreate it from scratch, how many? It's like, where's that knowledge at anymore? Right? So a lot of times when black folks say we want to do good in business, we think it's just about our individual intelligence. It's about the cultural intelligence. So when you have an entrepreneur who's learning all this information and then go out into the field and come back to a culture that doesn't have any of that intelligence, they're dying on the vine because of individualism. What Hope is trying to do is produce a culture that people can plug into that can start to feed them the solutions that we take for granted. Otherwise, you're asking an individual to function at a high level of calculation and knowledge and insights and decision making. Some of that decision making and knowledge needs to be within the group that you could just pull on and just grab quickly, right? And some things you have to own by yourself, but that's just too much for one individual by themselves to do. And so when you watch, like, white men in their country clubs, or you hear these private societies, they didn't do that because they had some magic trick that they were going to just control society by releasing a scent or a certain television show or a certain sound. It's because they formed a culture to normalize business. Business is a culture. And this is where all these programs are. I think all these programs suck. I was listening to the dude who did Blackish. What's the brother name did Blackish?
Kenya Barris.
Yeah, I love that cat. By the way, I love him. I actually love that show he put out. That was a mimic of his own life. I think it was a brilliant show. I think everything he does, that cat is so damn brilliant. Excellent businessman. But he was saying that in Hollywood, he came up rough. Like, he had to be assistant. It took him a long time to get to the level that he's at. But he said, you know what he feels sorry about? He feels sorry for a lot of black business. I mean, a lot of movie makers or show makers. What do they call them? Producers? Huh? Producers. Yeah. He said he feels sorry for a lot of young black producers who are coming up right now. And they said, why you say that? He said, because they're skipping the process, and they will give them a show after being in the industry for a short period of time, and they're surrounded with talent, and the show may even last 6 months. But after 6 months, they don't come back because they don't know how to come back. They don't know how to stay alive. They don't know how to negotiate. They don't know how to be in the industry. So what I end up doing is giving people money to speed up the process to die off fast. And then a lot of people are sitting on the side. Like, imagine that person who you produced a show on Channel 7. You became a town favorite. Everybody's applauding you. You may even got a key to your city, and you to be never seen again. Just imagine that level of depression. And then you start thinking, oh, white supremacy, the system, they won't let me in, You don't actually realize you don't know enough. And because you got blessed so early in the game, it produced what Court said earlier, this idea you know a lot or you know enough to be in the game when you're not qualified to be there. And this is what my biggest beef with all these incubator programs that give black folks money. They're giving people money who don't know anything. They haven't put any time in. They don't have a culture around them. So they may even get the money and they may take off running. They may last 1 or 2, 3 years. But at this point, when they fail, they don't realize it's what they don't know. They start blaming, black people wouldn't support me, or we need to buy black, or, white folks cut this off, or they gentrified my neighborhood, or stop. You don't realize what you don't know. And this business game, it's so much knowledge that's required to run a business. It's almost unfair to expect one person to own it all. If you don't have people around you to spread the knowledge and then to be able to command the knowledge to be competitive, I don't see how you can compete.
Yeah.
Don't see it.
It's crazy listening to what you're saying because, so often when people hear, and even when we've discussed it in class about the role of ego in entrepreneurship, and people, would automatically draw these, connections for ego to be like, peacocking and showboating and bragging, but that's not always necessarily what it is. It's getting yourself in over your head because you're operating as an individual versus leveraging the group. There are a lot of ways that, ego can come back to shoot people in the foot in business. And, also cognitive distortions, which we discuss a lot. This was something I didn't know anything about before coming into contact with the class. But when we learned about specifically cognitive distortions in stories, that was the beginning for me to try, and start to understand that I was in particular going to have problems on the entrepreneurial path because I recognized myself quite a bit as we went down the list of cognitive distortions and talked about what stories were. So why do you think it's important for these 2 points specifically to be an early space of learning for people who are getting started in entrepreneurship?
I think Court is going to do a wonderful job this year. I looked at some of the, me and Court we're throwing back and forth our curriculum stuff so we can develop the curriculum. And one of the reasons we stopped calling ourselves a Year of Hope and went to Academy is because we want to stop using the year as a constraint. We want to be able to, if it's a year and a half that's going to take to go through, we need to go through to get you to give you to lay the foundation for you, then that's what it's going to be. If it's 3 years for you, that's what it's going to be. But also the group serves a secondary purpose, which is being a culture that you can actually be a part of and you can actually build a relationship with peers for support. But I think what Court, and I think Court, please correct me, what Court is going to attempt to do is show you that you're human. I think that's what the problem is. We want to believe we're television, that we can just write a story about how we're going to show up and we are that story. And what we don't realize is that the brain is as magnificent as it has built-in limitations. And in those built-in limitations, it often can be distorted because the brain number one goal is not success. It is not a flashy car. It is not wearing the finest clothes. It's not being beautiful. The number one goal of the brain is self-preservation. So because its number one goal is self-preservation, it has flaws that may seem like it's a flaw when you're trying to become successful, but it's not flawed when it comes to survival. And so when you try to do something that's abstract, which is success, you're going to have these mental distortions, these fallacies, cognitive dissonance, biases, to name just a few. And if you don't know those things exist, the word bias means it's a blind spot for the brain. That means if you don't look for biases, I tell you what people who study biases, this is the funny part. They often talk about biases as if, that was a bias. They don't realize they keep talking about biases in hindsight. At some point, you have to but improve your foresight awareness of biases. So how do you start to realize, okay, I'm really happy right now, I'm really excited, or I really want this, I'm a walking bias. At this point, I need reinforcement because I can't trust myself, right? Or I'm really scared right now. Or I'm really stressed right now. Or I got to prove myself, right? Like those are things that will produce these mental distortions and biases. Also, a lot of our mental distortions came from survival rhythms. But sometimes they lie to us or they distort reality for us. And so if you're going to get into advanced strategy thinking, you got to learn about mental distortions because as you get to a higher level of thinking as far as driving strategies and ideations, you're going to realize that your brain doesn't agree with the strategy. Like some of the most dopest ideation techniques and strategy techniques and decision-making techniques, they don't feel intuitive. They feel very counterintuitive. And so if you don't understand the value of that, then trying to learn these advanced ideas, because even sometimes it is another, it's funny, in Hope, the first 6 months, most students think we are attacking them. We never mention their name. We don't know who they are. We can't possibly know who they are. But they would tell us afterwards, I feel like you was attacking me in the last lecture you gave.
A hit dog, a holler.
Right. And that's a mental distortion. Those are distortions that cause that feeling and that emotion, right? Well, the same thing happens in business. Imagine you go into a business office. Here's a fun one. So in my staff, I had a group of women in my class. I mean, my staff, actually, 510 Media, my staff. And he was like talking about, oh, white man. I say, whoa, freeze. We're not going to talk about white men in my business. He said, what do you mean? I said, because you about to lose all my money. He said, what? I said, the more you talk about white men as a superior oppressor, if 3 white men go into a room to negotiate with you and they got on suits and their hair slicked back with a part, look like madmen, you're about to lose that negotiation because you're already compromised. Because you already see them you already see yourself in a position of weakness. There's a rule that says to negotiate from a position of weakness is to submit, right? And so I explained to them that you're going to have to see yourself equal to them, or you have to be able to see through the things you think is great about them to normalize them. Otherwise, I can't allow you to negotiate with my money. So it's this mental distortions that can just destroy you in day-to-day tactics if you just don't even know they exist.
Go ahead, Court, because you be breaking the distortions down.
Sure does.
I was thinking about this is like everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants to improve. Everybody wants to make more money. Everybody wants to be richer, happier, more successful, find the person of their dreams, fuck better, drink better, eat better, look better in the mirror. Like, we all have goals in one of these or most or all of these areas. And there's nothing wrong with it. I think the biggest misconceptions and problems come from the how part. And just like a lot of people, I've tried to pile a lot of knowledge on top of a broken system. I have. I've read shitload of books and all these things to try to improve, went to hella seminars and this and that, and I realized it's putting a wig on a pig. It's putting a wig on a pig. So have you ever, I tell this to people, like, have you ever taken your phone out, your iPhone out, and taking pictures, and you look at a picture that you took from your iPhone, and the shit's hella blurry. And you're like, fuck, that's crazy. And you try to go to the editor and clear it up and fix it, and it just don't come out quite right. So you take another one. And then you take another one. You fix the lighting. You take another one. And nothing right. It's not right. And over time, you get caught up in trying to fix everything around the fact that the camera lens has got fuzz and dirt on it. and you got to start with that. Yeah. You clean that off, and then boom, now you got a clear picture. Now you can do all the other shit to make the picture better. And in entrepreneurship, we do the same thing. We trying to get a better this. We got a better planner. We downloaded this planning software, project management, this book, that, and all business shit. And we ain't fixed ourselves. So you are the entrepreneur. So if you can only run so many miles an hour as a person. So if you don't fix the you, then your business is going to be a reflection of however you are. Your bank account is a reflection of you. Your relationships and business is a reflection of you. The money you make, your products, your services, everything is a reflection of you. So the main thing and the dope part of this, and what I tell people, is fix you. And it goes back to this. As black people, we are traumatized as fuck. We done been through so much. So our survival mode game is on 10.
25.
So we're built for survival. And look at us. We here. We made it. That's dope. That's fire. Look at us. We here.
Yeah.
As black people, we are here, and that's dope. But the thing is, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you literally have to break that down and rewire yourself to think differently, and that's hard as fuck because you're scared as fuck to pull the resources from your survival mode and go into planning and chess mode and strategy and looking at data and all the things that somebody who has all the emotional and mental bandwidth to think about, who those people have 5 square meals a day, they rent paid, they lights on, refrigerator full, kids happy, everybody's good. So now they have the extra bandwidth to think about strategy. How do I want to grow? As black people, you have to pull resources from your trauma, your abuse, the shit that you've been through, all of that. You got to heal that first to give you more resources to even think about that shit. So that's why in the class, we talking about cognitive distortions and ego and emotional intelligence and emotional agility and getting to a place to where now you can even have that conversation about strategy. Because you can't, like if the lights is off, your rent paid, and you got some real drama at the house, like you got 15% of yourself left to make some money, and that's why a lot of us, we revert to just having jobs, because I can use that 15% to make 60 G's a year.
Yep. Yeah.
Can I add something real quick?
Yeah.
Of course, Court getting me fired up. I'm literally acting like I'm at his church, and I just want to testify. Let me add this too: offense versus defense. So you notice I use a lot of sport analogies because I think you can find a lot of similarities in life to sports. There's some similarities there that I like to exploit. Going back to what Court says, that, we're excellent survival, and that's so god-awful true. But it's also made us very defensive focused. So we got defense down to science, but we've never been taught offense. And I think what hurts me a lot is that there is just no offense in the wild for us. Like if you go into a room full of black folks, and this is not bad, or this is actually part. It's required to do this, but we can't get past this point. We can often, if somebody says, "Hey, what's wrong with black schools in Oakland?" and I promise you don't have enough wall space to write down all the feedback you will receive in that room. But once you say, "What's the solution?" you could just go pull out a notepad out your top pocket and write down a few things that's going to come from them, because we understand the defense of the game. We don't understand the offense. We don't even understand that offense. Here's one of the things that I don't think most black people know. Period. Across the board. I don't think I can even find this in pro-black books. And by the way, I'm a student of John Henry Clark and Amos Wilson. But this is something we can't even find in our books. Is this: that when it comes time for the solution, some problems are not meant for the individual to solve. You got to put together a team of people and create a process that will produce innovation and solution through the process. And the people that you put together don't need to be experts. They don't need to be super thinkers. They don't need to have a high IQ. You just need to put together the right type of team, create the right type of process, and you will produce these amazing answers to solve your problems. But a lot of times, we actually enlist ourselves only. We try to become heroes to the solution. And that problem is not meant for any individual to hero. It's meant for a team to come together and solve. And I think that's where black folks don't realize, is that the power really is us. But even with us, if you don't understand that process and procedures, you start thinking that white folks are gods. And they're not gods. They just have smart processes and systems. But with us, we pride ourselves on individual intelligence, and there's no individual that can compete with a group. So, for example, when you create a smart process, the process is actually smarter than the sum of every individual within that group. So for us to even suggest this idea that when somebody says, what's the solution? We individually should own it. That's the wrong question even to ask. Once we list the problems, if we were doing it correctly and we're following a process of ideation, we would list the problems and gain clarity. There would be a few other exercises. Then we would go through this brainstorming process that would allow us to upload numerous solutions, maybe thousands, to get to one, right? And that means you have to allow time for the answer to like surface, not put this emotional pressure. If you don't come with an answer tomorrow, then, you just wasted my time. That all that stuff you hear from people, that emotional space that people get into when they doing the social justice thing. And the reality is that some problems when it comes to human beings are so complex. And here's the last thing too. A lot of problems that black people are facing, other races are facing the same problems. And a lot of times others have solved the problem. But sometimes we tunnel so much on our blackness, we don't see how others may have solved the exact same problem that we're struggling with today.
Yeah. I want to jump into and say, we also are losing power that we already have.
Come on.
As a tool to get us where we want to go as black folks. If you had a hard life, if you had a tough life growing up, you've grown and gained some really dope survival tools. Not that it was, necessarily how you wanted to gain them, but
you got them.
But you got them. We got some dope ass survival tools. But now we enter this new era in 2023 where everybody's so fucking sensitive.
Uh-oh.
So and then us as a people are just monkey see, monkey do, copying them, following the trend of overly sensitive, this and that shit, when we tougher than that.
Yeah, I'm only laughing because I usually start this off first. But he did it. I love him for this. Thank you so much, because I'm going to have, but thank you for making me look good this time.
Ooh, all right, y'all.
You know what I'm saying?
Into it. I know exactly what
so
you're saying.
So it's like the society that we're traveling into is so sensitive and, oh, you hurt my feelings and this and that and weak as fuck and preventing us from really growing. All the while, us as black folks, we tougher than that.
Come on.
We been through some shit for the last 30, 40 years or however long you've been on this earth. We got way more grit than that. We can use that grit to really start building instead of copying the way society's flowing and being overly sensitive and overly canceling and using that energy to do dumb shit with it instead of really build.
In business, you have to pull things apart. So you can't say, I'm marketing to everybody. There's no such thing. You can't say I'm marketing to black people. There's no such thing. You can't say I'm marketing to older black people. There's no such thing. You got to look for hidden divisions. So there's multiple divisions, not only in America amongst different races, not only amongst the different genders, but also within those genders and within those races, right? So for example, the phrase I hate the most, people of color, there's no such thing in business. I can't do anything with that. I can't say, there's no market I can study called people of color, right? Because people of color, there's such a variety of behavior. I don't know what the hell that is. And no one has the amount of resources. I have a resource constraint that says I can't figure out what the fuck that means. Okay. So you got to pull. So in a sense of you got to pull things. You can't just lump things together to kind of like analyze things when it comes to these kind of levels of complexity. I was going to go back to your point. Your point you just made, but I got caught up in that thing you just said about the softness. Okay. Black people have to realize we're on a different path of our evolution. We're at a different stage of our evolution than white culture. I can't speak for white culture, right? And I'm not anti-white culture, but I can't speak for them because I can't speak about where they're at because I'm not white. I'm not a white male, not a white female, and I'm not white. LGBTQ+. I'm not white at all, so I don't really understand that. And when Court says, strength over weakness, I would think all human beings would say, if you had a choice, would you want your child to be strong or fragile? I think all of us would say strong. Two, I grew up in a house full of alpha females. My mother's alpha female, my grandmother's alpha female, and my great-grandmother's alpha female. I got a chance to meet them, all three of them, and spend time with them. And we talk about somebody who was super strong and grit and can pull through some stuff and got my family through some things that I'm here. I applaud all three of those women, right? My father was an alpha male, and even though he was in a dope game, if I told you his story, you'd be like, oh, boy. But what we don't understand is that when we try to mimic their challenges and identify by their values and their principles, we're getting off our path and we might find ourselves in the desert. We have to realize, what do we need to be? What do we need to work on to grow our community? If you get in your car right now, you drive from California to New York, you don't expect to see any high rises owned by black folks. You don't expect to see that. So that means that we're on a different journey. We're not even controlling our schools. I asked a question on the internet the other day. Like I said, hey y'all, who's responsible for black children? No one responded. But if you look at the black race, you think we don't know that we're responsible for our own kids, right? And so you don't see this ownership in our community that these are our responsibilities, right? Even when people complain about gentrification, I know what it feels like. It's shitty because, your park is gone. Everything that you identify is gone. But what you don't realize is that if you're not radically responsible for your neighborhood, others will take it. That's part of evolution rules, right? And so there's a script that says I got to do all these things that's required to own this space. And owning this space requires grit. Yet somehow we've sold to our kids that fragility is a new form of strength. And that message, like I said, I'm not sure, it might work for white culture for where they're at. And it may be where we could be at once we get to a certain level. I don't know. I'm that's too far outside of my analysis right now. Yeah. But where we are, with lack of ownership of all the things we need to control to actually generate growth and success, impact, which even improves our relationships. If you want Black Lives to Matter, then you got to do shit that matters. Right? So at the end of the day, it's like there's a level of grit that's really required there, that somehow we're getting caught up in this noise. This is not our noise.
It's not. And
it's like I said, and mind you, I'm super pro-black. Yeah, I'm super pro-black, but I'm not like Umar Johnson pro-black, right? Because he's a different cat. I'm more or less because I have a different consciousness, and in my consciousness, it's like I'm for building for black folks, but I also got to watch cultural trends and habits and belief systems. And I promise you, like I always say to people, I hate social justice, and it's not that I hate what it stands for, because of course I believe in diversity. I'm black. What else am I believe in? I'm like a black person who's anti every race is kind of weird. Anyway, the point is this, and I come from the creative world, so I'm used to working with all the gender choices. I worked with trans before trans was popular, right? But here's the difference between our world and this current world. In my world, where I work with the full LGBTQ plus community, I work with every race there was known to man. I work with every gender that's recorded by man. By man, which somebody be like, well, what do you mean by that? But here's the thing. We didn't like you because I didn't embrace you because of your label. I braced you based upon how you showed up and your skill level. We held you accountable. I think where social justice really, 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 really sucks is it tokenizes everybody. So you become a label, and you got value, right? If you just loud enough, you gain value. And here's the funny thing: I believe everybody is valuable if if you learn how to put them in the process to extract the value. I'm not arguing value, but what I'm arguing is that everybody should not have the same value as far as, like for example, I don't want the person who's been a doctor for 2 months to replace the doctor who's going to work on me who's been a doctor for 20 years. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing the ranking there. I want to acknowledge the ranking, but somehow in social justice we want to remove the ranking and so in the end we're selling. What message are we selling to our kids? The ranking doesn't matter. The hard work doesn't matter.
No, I think the beauty of this world is the beauty of the different cultures and how they get there.
Absolutely.
And how they perform. that's what makes us beautiful as a human race, is the diversity. But we're all on different trajectories and paths.
Yeah.
When he was talking, it reminded me of like me growing up. If I had I was at my white friend's house, and his mom came in and said something to him, and he's like, "Mom, this is my personal space," like, and closed the door on her. And I'm like, "Oh, she gonna come back and fuck you up." and she doesn't. And she says something to him, and he's like, "Leave me alone, Mom." It's no way I could copy that and go to my house and even try that a little bit.
And keep
my mom would beat the shit out of me because that's my culture.
Yeah.
At the time, that was my culture. So, but that's how we look now as entrepreneurs.
But look, watch this.
We're trying to copy. We are trying to emulate stuff that and bypass what works for us in our journey as black folks and be successful entrepreneurs, not realizing we have to drive in the lane that we're in and get to the destination in our car, in our lane, instead of copying what other cultures are doing blindly. It's like that's what we look like.
Well, part of that, depending on where you came from when you step into entrepreneurship, particularly if you're coming out of a corporate space, there are rewards, right, tangible and otherwise, that you get for kind of adapting to certain ways of being, ways of problem solving, ways of approaching, ways of, putting your arms around groups that maybe, aren't the same as you or you have not had that much experience with. So I can completely understand where by the time you get to an entrepreneurial space, you have a hard time kind of shedding that, and it doesn't work for you in that space the way it might have worked for you in a day job space.
Yeah. Well, here's one example. When you're an intro entrepreneur and you get in the game and you're asking for advice and you're trying to get money, you're trying to raise money, right? They say, well, go to the bank and get a loan or get a friends and family round. I'm from the hood. My friends and family ain't got no round. If I walk into a bank, first off, my credit wasn't pretty at all.
Check cash in place.
You walk into a check cracking place. Like, do you know where I grew up or where I'm from? Ain't nobody giving me no loan. So then what do? Sit on my ass and put my thumb in my mouth and look stupid? No, I use the resources that I gained from growing up where I grew up, which is hustle, make it happen, grit, determination, creativity, that Tupac dollar out of 15 cent mentality to get you to a space to where now you have something tangible, you can remove that mentality and go to the next. But if you like following the steps of what your friend next to you has gotten that doesn't look like you, you're going to be frustrated and blaming people instead of taking that ownership of your path.
Yeah. Such good conversation.
Well, can I just say something about the
you can.
chapter? Just one thing.
Yeah.
This is something I came up with recently. Just an interesting question to lob up to us. Say you're a middle-class black family. Let's say you grew up poor, like me and Court. Did you grow up poor, Kahja?
Semi.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So if your mother said racism, poverty was often the tangible signs of racism, right? And then when you would watch television, if you grew up before, say if you was born in the 80s and back, you would often see that there was a lack of black presence. And then there was so much, the stereotypes were just so rich. Like today, the stereotypes have come down a lot, right? They're still there, but not as bad as like the 80s, 70s, and 60s where stereotype was just horrific, right? So then you would look around and everywhere you saw, oh my God, racism is real. Imagine raising a black child if you have money today. So you remove the poverty, that's a reminder. How do you teach a black child about racism when you remove their poverty? Even though it is an invisible, abstract impact system that's going to impact them. It's going to tremendously impact them. But are we surprised a lot of our kids who go to these multicultural schools want to come home and tell you, respect my private space, Ma? And then we go as parents, oh shit, well maybe they are going to school with Billy and that's how they do in their house and maybe I should do this. But here's the difference. When Billy jumps out into the culture, going back to that culture argument, that culture is a different cultural support system. And when Michael from our hood community jumps out there, he has a different support system. And it's almost like one expectation just gets crushed or it gets set for them without they even knowing it's happening, right? Or they'll wonder why things ain't working out a certain kind of way. Or they even become soldiers of, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. Right. And we've already said to ourselves, we know it's not fair. Fuck, we knew that. Like, I was told since I can remember listen to my great-grandmother, the shit ain't fair out here, boy. Your job is to work on fairness for your community. The shit ain't fair out here. But these kids are told, they watch TV and they watch Nickelodeons and Disney channels and all the black and white kids are just, they hugging each other and they showing these old movies that never existed. And black and white people are in their 40s and they still friends and laughing and chucking shoulders and everything like this. And they're working in businesses together. And so our black kids grow up thinking, oh, the world's always been us. And then when they hit that first wall, they're devastated. And then they feel with envy, like, well, if white people have it, I should have it. And this is why I think social justice is sometimes an envy movement masked as social justice, because we've been sold the wrong story. And so I think that's another crazy thing, going back to what Court was saying earlier, is that it just ain't that simple, because culture is something, if we don't bring this into the conversation, can we really blame anybody for the distortions that we're operating under, including the corporate distortions? Like if corporate America was surrounded by a rich black culture that's saying, hey, we have a different agenda, similar to the way the Jewish culture says, hey, we have a different agenda, right? Then it's easier to say, hey, Kahja, you know we're over here, right? But when a black culture is broken down, but is broken down but heavily weighted with impact, and then there's this general multicultural, pop cultural thing that's driving communication. Are we surprised our kids don't really know what side to stand and where to go, and why blackness is taking on so many different definitions and splintering every time you turn around? Mm-hmm. Like, I can't blame black folks, and I really don't know if I can blame white folks. I just think it's one of those things that, and to those of us who are leaders, bring back substance, value, meaning. Be able to hire our own, give our own people status and value, then we're going to constantly be stuck in this twilight zone.
Give some real preparedness.
So what?
Some real preparedness.
Yeah. Because it's just like black kids need to experience, culture needs to be something you're proud of, not just it's a symbol of oppression. Like the oppression, we should never forget our oppression, but we have to build things we're proud of too. It has to both exist. Otherwise, to manufacture future generations to buy into what we're doing, it's going to be close to difficult.
You know, I see both sides of this, because what you described, you know, I have lots of friends who their kids are growing up exactly that way. Like, we all grew up a certain way, but their kids are living in the suburbs. They have vacations. They are in school where they may be one of the only. And so they have a complete different consciousness. And, you know, even in my work life, I see sometimes where that plays out because, you know, with, not of, right? And that's an awakening that a lot of people have once they've been in a certain environment growing up, and then they're now in a different environment in their business space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's I think we're filling black children from the bottom to the top. So there's a lot of black kids that grew up in crack neighborhoods with poor parenting, and we weren't there for them. And so we're surprised why they'll put a gun to our face. Well, we weren't there for them, right? And then we got the middle class kids who could be some of our future highly exposed leaders who we don't have a rich culture for them to celebrate. And then for even the successful kids, where's the culture for them as well? I think that as a whole, I don't think we should. I don't like pointing fingers. I just don't like pointing fingers. I think pointing fingers is just, to me, seems like I'm going nowhere. I think as an entrepreneur, so one thing about hope is when we teach entrepreneurism, we teach it from being socially responsible, black entrepreneur. So we don't teach you to make hella money and run around hella. See, so if you're not from Oakland, you just discovered I'm from Oakland. But we don't teach people how to make hella money and stunt on everybody. We teach you how to make a lot of money and impact culture and be successful. Your success should be, I want you to be financially comfortable enough to make good decisions and be able to be in a position to think. But I also want you to be able to teach you how to invest in solutions and build systems to change the conditions of your community. So so hope is not just about how to achieve success. You know, I'm not a black Tony Robbins. I'm not just trying to become Tony Robbins and become black version of that. I'm actually trying to teach folks how to be financially well off, but also how to have impact in first in your personal life, then your home, then your community, then your city, then your nation. And in that order.
You know, just to look at it from a different path, Court, really to both of you. Last night I just happened to be watching Raisin in the Sun, the 2008 rendition that had Puffy playing the role of Walter Lee that had been made famous by Sidney Poitier. And one of the things that stood out to me watching it was how much angst the character had, because he had an entrepreneur's heart in a family system where that was nowhere on their radar. He was in a family system where people worked, they kept their head down, they were practical with their money. And you could see over the evolution of the story how it just tore him up inside because he wanted to move a certain way. He didn't have the foundation to do it. You and Nana are both family men. Y'all are both partnered. What do you think the relationship is between singleness and entrepreneurship, and the kind of structure you need to have within your household around you if you are starting this path and you really don't want to get caught up in that space of trying to get something going while you're in the midst of people who that is not their reality?
You need peace. Entrepreneurship is hard. You know the statistics. 50% at 5 years, and then another 50% at 8 years. By 10 years, you're at a low percentage. So entrepreneurship is hard. So what a horrible way to entrepreneur when you partnered with somebody who is don't believe in you, against you, making it difficult for you. It only just ups your percentages of failure. So if you want an entrepreneur, you need peace. That's the bottom line. And so you may have to make tough decisions about guarding your peace if you don't have it. Because the question is, how bad do you want it? If this is something that's flowing through you, where you know that your purpose is built on becoming an entrepreneur, then you have to make the call to follow your purpose. Now, I've done some crazy things in the name of entrepreneurship, and probably some stupid things, because I was, in my previous marriage, I was such an entrepreneur that there was times where I didn't have enough emotional agility to frame things in a way that would make it more agreeable. But at the same time, I would motherfucker, you don't believe in me, then kick rocks. This is where I'm going as an entrepreneur. You with me or you not? You down or you not? No, if you ain't down, then bye.
Like that, huh?
Man, I'm serious. If you ain't down like that, then bye. I'm not it for you, because I'm never going to be that. And that's really the stance I had to take, because I knew that having, at a certain point, I would never be the guy who would get a job again. Never. Now, here's the caveat. For the sake of, and like I said, there were times when I did it stupidly. I was that stubborn where, motherfucker, I should have got a job. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, you should have got a job. There's no food in the refrigerator and everybody's hungry. Stop standing on that entrepreneurial shit and go get you a job. Like, there's times I should have did that. That was, like, in hindsight, for sure. But overall, you stand in your power of who you are and what you want to be. And being partnered with somebody who believes in that only adds fuel to that in a positive way.
Yeah.
Only adds fuel to that in a positive way. So it depends on the type of, like, how bad do you want this shit? And because this is not, a little thing. This is a lifestyle. This is a commitment. This is going to be pretty much attached to every part of who you are. And so, being around a person who can breathe life into that is probably one of the most beautiful things you can have. I'm fortunate enough because I'm 100% comfortable with being alone instead of being with having drama in my shit.
Yeah.
I'm 100% good, because that only slows up and it diffuses and it muddles up the progress. And then if you happen to stumble upon some success and that person wasn't riding for you, it only creates resentment. It only creates resentment for you. And now you don't want to share with that person.
Yeah.
Because that person wasn't with you shooting in the gym.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think it's extremely important, and because you have to have a level of peace in your household to be able to come to think things through, because it's going to be tough enough. It's going to be challenging enough on your journey as an entrepreneur.
Well, this has been great. I appreciate the perspective. To close us out, class, a new year of class. Hope Academy is going to be starting in January 18th.
Yes.
Date? January 18th. So for people who've been in class before or people who are newly joining, just at a high level, don't give it all away, but what can they expect in this year's session?
A couple of things. One, I think, so this year is going to be very, very different than any year we've ever taught before. And I think, first of all, this year will not just be a year. So it might be a year and a half. It might be a year and 7 months. So we're going to expand the class. This year is going to be a lot more discussions. So we're going to mix a combination of lecture series and discussions. And the purpose of discussions is so people can take ownership of the new knowledge. 2, we're going to have a lot more exercises. We're going to work on ideation and processes. We're going to work on decision-making strategies. We're going to actually also have exercises and homework practices, and we're going to gamify portions of the class. So we're trying to make class a lot more fun, but also more engaging, more active. We're going to mix. We get through the whole time you're there, it's going to be designed around personal development mixed with business growth, because they go hand in hand. You can't separate the two. 2 is we're going to also focus on a lot more feedbacks. So in the feedback, it will allow us to enhance the way the class is actually showing up. And then last, the class is going to really dive into the members a little bit more. So we're going to really spend a lot more time seeing how you're processing the information, and then how can we show up to that to help you enhance or understand this complexity. It's all about the culture this year. Like, this is really the year of the culture. So this year you're really joining a culture more than you're joining a class. But the class is going to be a smart space that's going to not only change the way you're processing the world because of the lessons in class, but we're designing the ecosystem to enhance the individual student.
I'm looking forward to it. I have to say, in closing, how tremendously helped I've been by the class. I don't know that I would call myself an entrepreneur just yet. I'll say I have endeavors, right, that I hope to turn into, financially profitable businesses, but just for the community alone, right? Just in getting my endeavors off the ground, the Hope community has been tremendously helpful. So many of the people who I've met through class, Charlize, Tone, Kelly, Brandy, Cassandra, Josh, and Jasadi have done projects for me. Just so many. Marquita, my sister, who, she's so smart and she has such great instincts and has been able to be a real thought partner with me and help me as I start to get so many things off of the ground. So if you are an emerging or burgeoning entrepreneur, or if you just maybe, are thinking about it and it's in the back of your mind, but you don't really know what the exit plan out of day job is going to be, I would really encourage you, and I'll be posting all of the details, but I would encourage you to take a look. Right.
From the death row.
All in the video. I would encourage you to really drop in to these early sessions of class and see if you can find information there. I know you can, but see if you can identify information there that's going to be helpful to you. I'm so glad that I found this all by accident. But thank you both for all, the information that you have shared over the 2 years in the class. If you want to just say quickly, I know y'all don't spend a lot of time on social media, but if you want to let people know where they can tap in to find out more about your respective businesses.
Well, I'll say this too real quick, is that it's authentic. So these classes aren't taught outside of the culture that you are. So they're taught to speak your language. I try not to, we don't use complicated words to sound super smart. We use words that we want to seep into your consciousness so you get it. So that's really, to me, one of the major things is like, we from where you from. We speak how you speak, but we've figured out a way to use the knowledge over here and integrate it. And now we can speak it to the language where you can digest it faster because we need more of us fast. So that's really where we are. It's not, we not professional teachers. I'm not no professional teacher. Neither one of us are. But we've learned things over time to help grow our businesses in a way that we have to share. And that's where we at.
So what he said was, we believe in cultural pedagogy.
I don't know what the fuck
Okay.
that is.
Come on, words.
No, that's what I mean. That's for culturally sensitive. We have culturally sensitive pedagogy, which is that we pay attention to the way Black folks learn, and that's what he's saying. Like he's a lot of times language was used to create a border for Black folks, and so a lot of times when Black folks rise up, we will grab that same language to claim status to other Black folks, and the goal with Hope is that we're not trying to train you to follow us. We're trying to raise up peers. And so in order for us to create that comfort, we boil things down to give you ownership. We will give you the language. So if you're ever in a situation where you have to debate in an intellectual forum, you can carry your weight. But what Court does, me and Court studied over an hour and a half. We studied an hour and a half a day, minimum 6 days a week, minimum, meaning most times 7 days a week. And so minimum days, 6 days a week, you study an hour and a half. And this has been going on for almost 18, 19 years.
16.
Yeah. And so with that many years of studying, you'll be surprised how much you will evolve and grow. But yet, if you speak the language the way you read it, the way you think it, quite often you're speaking past your people, and all you're trying to do is flex, right? I call that the Cornel West effect, where you use this huge language, but everybody in the room go, "What the hell did he just say?" At some point, you realize that value is dispersed in our community. So from poor to rich, we got a lot of Black folks who are valuable, and they're hidden, they're unknown. So we try to find a common language to speak to everybody in our community, and then let the valuable people step up to the forefront and go, okay, there you are. And so he's 100% correct. We do speak a language that's very common and very relatable to let you know that we are your brothers in this game, and we're trying to get you in the game that we're in. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So shout out real quick, if you're asking for that, Courtsmith.com, at Courtsmith is the Instagram. That's it.
Name of our company is 5tmedia.com, and the nonprofit is at 5T Media Hope Foundation. And you can find me under my name on Facebook. I don't do a lot of social media, but my team uses Facebook and Instagram, and they, most times then post it for me. But it's Nana Kofi Nti. Nana spelled Nana, Kofi, Kofi, Nti, Nti. If you look that name up, I'm probably the only one on social media. It's a Ghanaian name. But if you look that name up, you'll see on my page, and all those things are connected and a lot of stuff that's happening. Plus, we're going to run a paid push campaign starting in January, and there'll be year-round marketing this time around because the class is different now. It's designed differently. You can join at any time.
That's what's up. Well, I definitely will be posting information, links to both of their businesses, links to information for you to check out more about 510 Media and about the Hope Academy for this year. If you want to stop by my Instagram and get to know me a little bit better, I'm at Kahja versus Kahja. That's KAHJA_VS_KAHJA. That's this week's episode of the As Told by podcast. Peace.
Thank you for having us.
We out
Thank
this
you.
motherfucker.